So we are going to be looking at this isn't going to take very long. It's just a quick tool to or workflow process to help you with equipment modifications. I call this the box method. And so what we're going to do is first we want to look at why would you want to use, or why should you use the box method. Vendor equipment modifications happen. That's just the nature of being in that business. When you're designing plant models, plant designs, you're going to be getting, if you're not developing your own equipment for your plant and factories, you're going to be getting that equipment from vendors. And routinely, that equipment's going to change. You know, nozzle locations may change, diameters of tanks may change, different things can happen. And so, one of the things that in the role that I play in the industry, where I'm a consultant and I hear the pains and the things that users have to go through. This is one of the things that's a pain point. So this is just one of a couple of different ways to handle this situation. So vendor equipment modifications, they're going to happen, and you're going to need to know how to deal with those quickly. So you need quick updates of the equipment in the model. Now, what you tend to do now, if you're not using any kind of method like this, or you're not using any of the others that are potentially out there, what you probably do is you place your piece of equipment in that you've downloaded from a vendor website, or you've gotten it directly from a manufacturer, fabricator, and you put that into your model, and you start connecting. You add nozzles to it, you start running pipe to it, and then you realize later on that, all right, the vendor has sent us a new model. There's been a change to the tank, there's been a change to the pump, heat exchanger, whatever it is that you're working with, and you need to put that in. So now what you normally do is you would probably go in and delete that piece of equipment out of your equipment drawing, place in the new one. You have to reset up your nozzles, you have to re-enter your tag information, various properties that are going to be needing to be updated. And so you need all that. You really need to keep all that intact. And so what I'm going to show you today is a way to do that, being able to swap out that equipment fairly quickly and fairly easily, but at the same time maintain those tags, nozzle sizes, ratings, descriptions, etc., to make that a little bit easier on you in your day-to-day. All right, so how does the box method work? Well, you're going to create a 3D solid box. It can be a cylinder. I just call it the box method. It can be a box. It can be a cylinder. It can be anything really. It can be a line. But what I want to do is use a box, because I'm going to be placing this at the bottom of this angle, this leg of this tank. And so when I go to insert the next vendor equipment, that's going to I'm going to place it on the exact same location that this one's going to be placed on. So we create a 3D solid box that ends up being our equipment. The box does, not the actual vendor equipment 3D model, but the box becomes the equipment. So we convert it. We place it on the imported vendor equipment. And then what we do after that is just attach it. We attach the 3D vendor equipment to the box. It becomes part of it. And then, if you move things around, add nozzles, you can use that geometry of that vendor equipment in order to create those. All right. So again, we'll create the nozzles on the equipment. And now, so that's how we get it started. And so that's in anticipation of vendor sending you modifications to their equipment. Now the vendor has updated the equipment. What do we do now? Well, we detach that vendor equipment from the box. So just like that, there's a button in the ribbon that says attach 3D geometry to equipment. There's also a detach. And so we'll use that detach and basically remove or erase the old model out of the way, and then import the new vendor equipment in. attach it to the same box just like we did with the first one, update any relocated nozzles, and then it's ready to go. So let's see this in action. I do want to show you a couple of things here. I am going to be in two different applications, by the way. So the tank that you're going to see in plant is actually a tank that I quickly built here in Inventor Professional, and I've got some. I use some iLogic with it. I know if you're a plant user, none of this really matters to you at all, but just so you know that if you do need to get into any kind of equipment design, you can do that with Inventor, and you can build in some rules and some forms in this to make that process go a little bit easier, a little bit better. So again, this is pretty basic, but you can see here I've built a form, and it's very simple to do that inside of Inventor using iLogic. But I can change the tank diameter, I can change the tank height, and you can see things start to update as I go through. I can change the wall thickness, various other options. Maybe we want this the head of the tank to look a little bit different. We can modify those dimensions as well. Increase the radius right here on the head, and so we can make this look any way we need it to look. Increase the number of legs holding the tank up. I've got some predefined values for that. So I'm going to pick 3, 4, 5, or 6, and you can see it automatically change. And then there's some other options in here like nozzle length. So if I need to say that's a 9-inch nozzle, you can see how all of the nozzles updated. And I could do this individually if I wanted to. Also, I can change the location of where the nozzle is. So I'm adjusting the height for this one. This one over here, I can just adjust where it's going to be positioned height-wise, as well as on an angle. Do I want it at 45 degrees off of 0, or 315? So I can put it all the way on the other side. So there's a lot of different options here inside of Inventor, but I wanted to show you this because this is, if your vendor is not using something, not using Inventor, they're using something like this that allows them to go in and make those changes fairly quickly and issue out another version. But Inventor will definitely do that for you, and we can certainly help you get that started if you're not using it already for equipment design. Now let's go over to plant. And so I've got this piece of equipment in, and let me back up. I did want to mention this. If we do want to get this out into a format that can be read into plant, we can use BIM Exchange for that, and it's basically defining an ADSK file. And so that's the interchangeable file. We basically just, we could put pipe connectors on here and go ahead and define these sizes and things, but I like to do that in plant instead. So I typically leave that off, but what I can do is create an ADSK, put it wherever that project is located in plant, say maybe in your related files folder or your equipment templates folder, somewhere where it can be found inside the project, and save it out to that ADSK. So once it's in an ADSK format from Inventor, I can then bring that into plant, and so that's something that we do right up here. In the equipment, you'll see this icon that has a yellow eye on it. That's Convert Inventor Equipment. And so that's looking for that ADSK. So I can import that file in, go find the ADSK, and just drop it into your plant model. And so that's what we're looking at now, is that same Inventor file converted to ADSK, imported into Plant 3D. But it's not intelligent. Normally when you've gotten this in, you have to do some type of conversion. You need to convert this 3D model into AutoCAD Plant 3D equipment so that it's intelligent. You have all the associated properties that you would fill out for that. So that's something we need to do, but I don't want to do it to this equipment. Like I said, we're going to use a simple box to do this, because if you look over here, here's the new version of that tank where I've relocated some of the nozzles, relocated the angle and the height of the nozzles. So we're going to start with this one, and then we're going to remove it and add the new version of that model in onto that same piece of equipment. All right, so What I want to do to start with is create a box. I could use a box, I could use a cylinder if I wanted to put it somewhere in the center of this tank, a sphere. Any of these primitive shapes, you can certainly use that. It doesn't even have to be a primitive shape. You can just create a 3D solid of some sort and use that as well. But I find the box just to be pretty simple. And I'm just going to pick this bottom corner down here, this other corner on the other side of that angle, and just drag it up, you know, however high I want it to be. I'm just going to do 2 inches. So if you look on the inside here, you can see that box. I've kind of hidden it inside of the angle. And so this is going to be the actual piece of equipment, not the tank. So I'm going to go to my home tab, and we're going to convert. I've already got it selected, so it's seeing what I had selected, and I'm telling this that this is a tank or vessel, whatever it is that you need it to be. And so it goes ahead and it assigns those properties to that. I need to insert, select a base point for that, so I'm going to pick this corner. And so now I can start plugging in information regarding this this tank. So I'm just going to say this is a tank 700. I can put in a long description, just put in my tank. And of course, we can go over to properties, fill out more information if we need to. You know, manufacturer, material, weight, all this kind of stuff. You can fill that in here. You can certainly leave this blank, come back and fill it in through Data Manager if you want to do it that way. But I'm just going to select OK. So right now, this, if I hover over that, you can see that that box is tank 700. If I hover over the tank itself, it's nothing. It's not intelligent. So this is where we do our attach. So I'm going to come over here to this button, which has the small paper clip on it. Make sure you're in the equipment category here, and we'll do a attach. And I'm going to select the equipment, single equipment item, which is the box, and then select what I'm attaching to it. Okay. You probably did this before in earlier versions of Plant 3D, where you drew in a tank, but it didn't have any of the options to place legs or skirts or anything like that, or saddles, and so you kind of built those in 3D and attached them. It's the same concept, same thing that we're doing. So now when I hover over this, that is all one piece of equipment, and it's tank 700. So now when I select it, I'm going to have an option to add nozzles. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to pick these existing nozzles on center, and we'll select that and pull it out. So you can see this is 0 degrees, this is 270, so I need to pull this out at 315. So I'm going to go 24 inches at 315. And so there's the first nozzle that's been assigned. I don't need to change the location, but I do want to modify the type. That is a 6-inch nozzle. So I'm going to tell it it's a 6, it's a 300-pound raised face, and we'll let it keep that. Okay, so just to prove the point, we can start routing directly off of that nozzle now, off of that tank. Okay, let's go do the other nozzle. And so that one is on this back side here. And so let's create, let's do that nozzle as well. So again, I'm going to pick the center, pull this out, and you can see that it's between 270 and 180, so that's going to be 225. So we'll do at 24 inches, angle 225. And so now there's the second nozzle. And so we'll change that. That's also a 6, 300-pound. And then the last one is up here. And so this is, again, this is what I'm doing, assuming that I'm only going to have one of these. But what's going to end up happening is I'm going to have a new variation of this tank be delivered from the vendor, and I just need to go in and make some modifications by removing and adding it in, make some modifications to the nozzle locations. So this last one, we're going to do a center location here, pull directly up, vertical, and that's nozzle 3. Again, just like the other, it's a 6-inch raised face. All right, so now every one of these I can route from, right? I can grab pipe, grab the plus and start routing pipe. And this is a intelligent piece of equipment now. So I'm going to do all that pipe, go back. So now let's look at the properties for this. I've already got properties open. So over here, you've got all those same properties we were looking at when we had the option to convert the box into equipment. I can go fill these out here. I can do this from Data Manager, but let's just keep an eye on a couple of things. It's my tank. It's TK700. And so now I've gotten a new model in, right? And I need to replace it with that, with this one, or replace this one with the new one. So I'm going to go in and do a detach. So when I detach, it's I had it selected already. Let me just do that without having it pre-selected. I'll do a detach, pick the equipment, detach all objects, yes. And so now if I take this, I can erase it, move it. I'm just going to move it out of the way. But the box still remains, and you can see the box still has nozzle locations. That's very important because I want to be able to just modify the locations for these rather than have to recreate them all. It's going to be a lot easier on it. Now, this tank is only 3 nozzles, but what if you had one that had, 20, 30 nozzles on it, but only 3 nozzles changed? You don't want to have to recreate 30 nozzles on that tank just to make it an intelligent plant object. We can just or modify the ones that have changed. So I'm going to move this tank using that same insertion point to the same insertion point here. So I'm basically just replacing it over it, right? I'm going to attach now. So we'll attach, we'll pick the box, the equipment, and then we'll pick what's attaching to it. Now it's all one piece. You can hover over it. Everything highlights. It's all one item now. So if we select, you can see that I've got a couple of nozzles I need to fix. This one is still good because I didn't change the location for that. But these two, I'm going to need to modify. So by selecting the tank, you'll see the pencils to edit. So I'm going to select that first one. This one's basically rotated over 45 degrees. So I'm going to change the location and essentially just do the same thing I was doing before. I'm going to pick the center of this, pull the direction out. It's still a 6-inch, 300 pounds, so there's nothing really to change there. But now when I route pipe, it's coming from the new location. Same thing here. This one's down closer towards the bottom, so I'm going to modify it. So we'll change location. And this one, again, I'm going to pick the center. So just shift right click, center. And this one's coming off at an angle 0 and 270. So this will be 315 also. So I'm going to do it at 24 or 315. And 6-inch, 300, all that's good. So now this one, just like the other, is ready to route from. And that is the process. That is the box method. I can do this over and over and over every time a vendor updates their equipment that I'm placing into my overall project. And making those quick changes to the nozzles is going to save you a lot of time, a lot of headache when you're doing this. So with that, we can go over and take a look at any questions you might have. We did mention this was going to be a short one, so we'll open up the questions. Amy, do we have any questions so far?
I don't see any questions so far. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to type those in. So if you have any questions based on what Scott showed us, please type those in now. What if the piping was already existing?
If the piping is already existing, then obviously the pipe is not going to move with the nozzle when it's replaced. That piping will have to be rerouted it can't know to move to a different location. So in that case, if you had something like this, and the pipe was routed, but we changed the height of this nozzle, so you may have to back out. So you may have to back out a couple of fittings and just delete, select the plus, and go to the new location of the nozzle. So let's just, as an assumption here, let's just say that this nozzle that I had here in the new version moved to here. So what I could do is just, again, just back out a little bit and then go find the node of the new nozzle location and let it automatically give me some routes to choose from. Like that. I see the other question, another question has come in. Can we modify on the equipment on Inventor and reinsert in the model? You would still have to export out to ADSK. I mean, if I'm understanding the question correctly, if you're also using Inventor to generate equipment or to design equipment, you're still going to need to export that out to ADSK to bring it into plant. So there's not a real-time change that can take place there. It's not a linked model in the Inventor model. Obviously is an IAM file or an IPT, depending on how you model it, and then it has to be really an ADSK to bring it into Inventor using this tool here. Now, I've noticed in 2018 that we can import in IAMs and IPTs directly, and it does a conversion, but you're not going to get the same. You're not going to get that real-time link back to the IAM file. So the question, so I guess this is a sub part of that question. In the case that vendor supply the model, can we modify the equipment on Inventor in the case that the vendor supplies the model? Whether this is a vendor supplied or you're downloading it, either way, you're basically bringing in 3D geometry that you're not going to be like modifying inside a plant. You're just using it as it is. Hopefully, I'm understanding this question right, but so it's coming in as is, whether it's a modification from that vendor or just a brand new type of tank. Either way, I mean, it's going to work for both, but by using that box, you're maintaining that information. So again, I didn't show this before, but we replaced this entire tank with a new version of it, but nothing in here changed, right? It's still maintained that it's this tank and this tags, TK700, this description. So we didn't lose any of that information, but we do get to change the geometry pretty easily without having to recreate every single nozzle. Another question here. So the Autodesk model updates in plant, or the ADSK model updates in plant when the file changes, but the IAM does not. I think I understand what you're saying now. If this is dealing with the same thing, no. If we insert that exact same ADSK in, we're not replacing an existing one, so it doesn't just like do a refresh over the same file. When we import that new model, it's a new model in there. But by having the box as the equipment, that's the only thing that stays consistent. It doesn't change. We just import the new geometry over that, attach it to the box, and then you just update any nozzle locations.
All right, that looks like all of the questions for now.
Yep.
Oh, there's one more.
And then one more. All
Is
right.
it? You go for it.
Yeah, I'll read it. So there's no benefit to exporting to ADSK over IAM. I wouldn't say there's no benefit. That's kind of how we've done it for a couple, well, for several releases. Here just recently, we've been able to import the IAM. I would need to check, and I really haven't done this yet, but I would need to check file sizes to see if importing the IAM directly in is going to be more complex than the ADSK. I know with an ADSK, prior to creating an ADSK, we can simplify or shrink wrap that tank. So if there's a lot of stuff going on the inside of that tank, I certainly don't want that kind of detail in plant. So I can simplify that and create an ADSK of it to get that file size down. But yeah, there may not be a benefit other than that. There may not be a benefit to using the ADSK over the IAM. One other question here: can you have a model be an XREF type attachment instead of an import? Sure, that works too. I had mentioned earlier in the webinar that there were a couple of methods for this. This is just one of those methods. The other is obviously using XREFs to for that equipment. And so yeah, that can be done just as easy. I prefer this method just to because I want that to be a part of my equipment drawing, not its own drawing. So, but you know, if your project is set up in a way that you can do that, then that would work. Can you attach the box to the XREF? That I'm not sure about. I don't know if I can do that with, because when we do the attach, it's looking for 3D geometry. It's not looking for a file. So I don't believe that's going to be an option. You may have to do the box. No, I don't see how that's going to be an option. I could be wrong. I'd have to test it, but I'm pretty sure when we do attach, it looks